Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited to be with someone I've tried to get on the podcast. She is so busy coaching her very first season at her alma mater, Morgan Zerkle. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Busy times. We're recording this literally days before you get to hit the road. What are the initial excitements around all of this? Or, let's just talk excitements because I know it's crazy.
Every first game of the year is exciting. You've been waiting so long. You've been like, you want to go south, you want to play in warm weather, you want to get on the dirt. Like, you always have that. But for me, it's a little extra exciting because, it's my first game as a head coach. So that's obviously a big deal and exciting, and I'm ready for it. So feeling extra excited this season.
Yeah, and you still get to play, which is kind of like wild and awesome as well. So is it going to be weird, like wearing, not the jersey, but the Marshall logo on your coaching chest, and then teaching your players how to enjoy the moment?
Yeah, I've been doing it a little while now as an assistant, so I've kind of gotten used to, uh, not being able to have control over the game really as a coach.
Yeah.
Coaches don't really have much control over the game. You practice and prepare, and you try to make the athletes as ready as they can be to do it on their own. So really, I just sat on a bucket during the game and hope everything we're prepared for, turns out like we want it. So it's actually a little bit easier of a job, I think, to just,
I think
okay,
so
let's
too.
go. They have to do it. But being an AU and being a captain, you kind of get a little bit of the coaching role during that as well at times if you're in that role. So it's kind of easy to mix the two, and I've kind of been doing it for a little while now. So
Yeah, speaking of AU, you recruited some teammates of yours from AU to be your assistants. I remember seeing everybody be dropped, like as it was being announced, you were like choosing your teammates to coach alongside you. What was that process like?
when you're looking for coaches, you want people who you trust and who are just ready to learn and build something with you. And all three of them I knew were going to be trustworthy people, friends, good companions, and people who were just high level thinking of the game and also played at a high level themselves. And that's kind of, I wanted to put those people in front of my athletes because, who better to learn from than, a bunch of mid-major kids who now play professionally and get to live out their dream daily. So to be able to have that many people on staff that are just real life examples of achieving a dream, I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned the mid-major, because this is why I needed to have you on the podcast, because everybody's in this like, hey, Power 5 conference or bust mentality. When I'm sitting here like, there is so much benefit to going to a school that you love and enjoy for reasons other than softball, first of all. And also, if you go to the right place and you feel like you're home, like you will perform better. And clearly, Marshall was that for you. So can you talk about your softball journey, maybe leading up to playing at Marshall, and then getting that professional call to then go play?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't really recruited by any schools, maybe a couple local that were even slightly aware of me, but really Marshall was the only one knocking at my door. And, that's where I'm from. So that probably is why I had the opportunity, is because they actually, knew who I was. So then getting the opportunity to play at Marshall, to me, it was the best thing to ever happen to me, because I was truly developed at Marshall, and I wasn't, depending on where you go, you might not get to play as a freshman. You might get put on the back burner until, an All-American graduates. Like, you never know. And Marshall for me was a perfect situation. I got early experience on the field. I got to then be evaluated and see how I did and push to a higher level. And my coaches really took the time to develop me as a person and player, and that's exactly what I needed. And that's why I think by the end of my career, I did have that opportunity to get drafted and keep playing, because I'd grown so much in the 4 years. When I walked onto campus, I wasn't a, you know, a highly recruited or potential professional player, that was younger. Like that wasn't who I was. But after 4 years of development, then I was ready and at that level. And I'm just super thankful for that. And I think some kids need to hear that and see that because, similar experiences happened with all of my, like two of my staff members. And then my pitching coach even transferred from a Division 1 school to a Division 2 school and loved her experience at the Division 2 level. So I think it's all about wherever you're going to grow the most and be able to succeed and have a good experience is what's most important. And if you really want something to and dream to do it, you can do it almost anywhere. But I'd like to think at Marshall it's very possible too.
Yes. Oh, I have goosebumps. I also can relate in so many ways. A lot of people think like, "Hey, you went to Purdue, you were an all-star player," and I'm just like, "Yeah, but I hit like 250 my freshman year, and I was not that good." And same thing as you is like, if you just want to get as great as you can each year, you're learning more about yourself as a hitter, as a defender, whatever, and you just like have this itch to want to just get and fine tune each part of your game. Over time, you're going to be an outstanding player. And I had no idea I was even in the cards to potentially be a draft. I don't know if that was the same for you. I literally got like my coach said the day before the draft, "Hey, they're putting you in the NPF like potential draft." I'm like, "What?" That's a thing. But it's kind of crazy. What was your experience in that regard getting drafted?
Well, I think my biggest shock came a little bit earlier than the draft was when I was invited to try out for Team USA, and that was kind of like, what? Me? Seriously? How do they even know about me? So I think that was my first initial shock. That was like, okay, really? They want some kid from Marshall to come try out. So that was kind of my experience, similar to your draft experience. So I at least knew people were looking at me at that point. So um I was a little nervous in the draft because I was drafted last um in that year, but I at least knew I was up for it just because of the other players I'd kind of been competing with on a USA Elite team and different things at that time.
Hmm. Did you feel a lot of pressure playing, with, some All-Americans that, maybe won a national title or like went to postseason? I had never gone to a postseason. I felt a lot of pressure playing with these athletes that, people idolize. And I'm just like, okay, this is crazy. And for a while, it kind of like hit me hard and I kind of doubted myself a little bit. Did you ever go through that? Or is that something that you made sure you worked on right away and you were okay with it?
I absolutely went through that. I mean, there's times I still go through that
Yeah.
where, you have to remind yourself you belong. And that was something my coach really like pointed out to me from the very beginning. When I went to the tryout or I went to my first summer league team, like she's like, you just have to remember that you're here for a reason and you belong. And constantly hearing that helps, but you still, you're looking at other people's, biographies and all their social media followers and all their fan base that they have. And it's tough not to feel like you maybe don't belong in that environment because you're not, you're just different. Your path was different, but that's all it was a different path to the same destination. And just reminding yourself that I'm here though. We're both here. We're both in the same dugout doing the same things. And but I'll be honest, there's still days I have to remind myself, and going into my 8th pro season, like I still have to remind myself of that it doesn't matter. But sometimes coming from a different path, you kind of have to fight for yourself a little more or just prove yourself a little more. But it's doable, and if you keep your head on straight, like you can get through it, no problem.
Mm. That's awesome. That's really encouraging. I want to go back and play now that I think we're actually similar ages. I should have looked this up, but I'm 31 now, but I'm just like, dang, I wish I could go back and play because I feel like from a mental standpoint, I would be in a way better space than my
Yes.
22-year-old self getting drafted and feeling like a tiny fish in a huge pond. Did you feel at Marshall at all like you were like a big fish Or did you feel like in regards to your talents, you were I don't know how to describe it. Like at Purdue for me, I felt like I was like a big fish in like a little pond sometimes because my senior season I was the only one producing offensively, but that was just my experience. But or did you feel like at Marshall you did a really good job of just like making sure you were your head's on straight, you said that yourself, but that you felt like you were right where you needed to be. You didn't care if you were like the best player in the conference. You were just focused on you.
I think I was lucky enough to play with some other really good athletes that were pushing me in different ways. I had, by my senior year developed like an all-around skill set, but I was lucky enough to play with a lot of people that were pushing me in certain areas, challenging me in stolen bases. I had two teammates that, had just as many, if not more, stolen bases as me. So I had a good competitive team as far as some of those people. And I think really all I wanted to do my senior year was to win a championship. And I think that kind of helped make the personal stats that you get pressure to perform for not as important, because I just wanted to win really, really bad. I didn't
Yeah.
want to go through my 4 years and graduate without a championship and without a ring. So having that like goal be at the forefront of my mind, I think helped take some of the pressure off like my individual goals, like being an All-American and having the stats that you needed. So I think that definitely helped. But I think it's also like a special feeling being at Marshall or a smaller community, tighter knit school that, yeah, when you do produce, you feel special. And I think that's a cool thing about maybe not being at some of these really big schools is that when you do something great, like you feel that love and specialness from the community and the fans because it is a little tighter knit than maybe of the larger fan bases.
Sure. Yeah. And there's that added pressure. I love that. And I love that you probably felt like it wasn't just the community within softball. You probably felt, the support from, academically your teachers or like people were just more
Right.
connected within your school. I'm really curious because there's a lot of athletes who listen who, want to play in college one day. And I want to know specifically, like, what was it about Marshall that you knew this was it? Like, this was where you were meant to be?
Well, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, I didn't really have a lot of options. So for me, it was someone who believed in me and thought I could, become something great. And I don't even know if I really knew that in high school when I was being recruited, because you're young, you don't know all the things, but I did know,
Yes.
someone was giving me an opportunity to play, which is what I want. And it didn't matter where it was someone believing in me and giving me an opportunity. So I went for it. And then, wherever you're at, like be the best wherever you're at and work hard
Yeah.
to get there. And that's, I think, how I got then to the next level is just being happy and working my butt off where I was at.
Mm-hmm. And then the calling to then be a coach back at your like probably favorite university, obviously in the country. Like, take me through the emotions there because did it feel full circle for you? Is it something that you're excited because you want to take, what you remember and like build upon it? Like, what does that feel like for you to be able to be the head coach at where you literally played already, like at
It's
your age too, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. I went a couple of places to get some coaching experience and was a GA and assistant. And, I loved everything about coaching in those roles, like helping athletes, be better hitters, to understand the game more, whatever it was, like just be there for them. That was such a great experience. And then to be able to come and not just be at the school that you played at, but to lead the program is something that, I always wanted, but I didn't know the opportunity would come up this soon and it would, be presented to me. And just to be here in this role, sometimes I look around and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I feel like I was here just the other day. But when you look, it's like, okay, we haven't won a championship since I left. And now it's like, I want that for my student athletes. I want that feeling that I had my senior year where, Marshall was top 25 consistently and we got to go to regionals and that was just the most fun thing as a student athlete. And now as a coach, like, it's just, I want it again, except now I'm in a different role wanting it. I'm wanting it for others and to have that same experience.
I don't think there's any better motivation than that, like to get the feeling back that you had. I'm sure your players are, itching for the exact same thing. When you have your player meetings or practices, are you focused on a championship, or are you focused on like the day by day? Let's focus on the little things. What is your main focus right now as a team?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about like our individual development and our team development. We don't have to be perfect to be improving. And if we just are constantly working on what we know we need to work on, eventually it's going to click. It may not be first game, it may not be 15th game, but if by the end of the season we've prepared and we're doing what we can, like maybe we have a shot at a championship. So um obviously we want to win and we want to be a contender, but that's always a goal. But I think they know each day what they're going to have to do if they want to make that goal real. And I think that's where they have really good process goals and are taking it a little easier on themselves and knowing like, hey, if it's not here, the first practice, the first game, like we know we can get there eventually, and that our ceiling is higher. So I think they have a really good outlook. They came up with a couple mottos this year, only us, kind of thinking about, let's not look in the other dugout and, care about the name on the other jersey, but we know what we're trying to do together as us. And then the tough get tougher. And I think that's pretty special for them to kind of come up with, because they had a phenomenal season last year. I think they had the most wins in program history, but they unfortunately didn't get to have a chance in the NCAA tournament. So this year they want to get tougher and they want to be challenged so that if they do get an opportunity, they'll feel prepared for it. And I hope they at least do feel prepared throughout preseason and conference. And if we get that opportunity, I think they'll then be ready for it.
Speaking of season, which is in a couple hours, you just had your first pitch dinner, and it looked like an amazing show out. You also had Coach Stanton
Yes.
there, which I need you to talk about her because I'm a big fan of what she's doing over in Indiana, and I know you're a big fan of her. Tell us about the first pitch dinner. It looked awesome.
Yeah, we got together last night, had our senior speak. Shonda was our keynote speaker. And we had almost 200 people come out from the community and parents and, donors, and just, meet our team, hear from our seniors, and then hear Coach Stanton speak. And she did a phenomenal job as always. She's such an inspirational person. And the reason I am even a coach today and half the coach I am today is everything she's taught me. So talking about a full circle moment, that was definitely one. I got a little emotional and teary eyed during the event for sure, because it was just, so surreal seeing, my team 31 out there and then having her speak to them, and, the 17 years she spent at Marshall, and just all those people and support around there. It was a really special evening.
Yes, and you talk about how she's a huge mentor for you, and I'm sure she wouldn't take credit for half the player that you are, but what are the things about Shonda that stood out to you? Because there are a lot of coaches that listen and they're like, okay, I want to make sure I give all of my athletes like enough to be able to thrive in whatever area they want to get the best at. Like, what is it about Shonda that, made you who you are?
Yeah, I think Sean is not afraid to push you, and not just push you in the softball field, but in all areas, whether it's public speaking or making you, play a position that you didn't want to play or whatever it may be. Like, or when you feel good and you think you're good, she's going to push you to be great, and she's going to make you keep climbing. And I think that's the reason why I got to the highest level, is because she didn't, let me feel satisfied. When I hit 300 as a freshman, she basically told me like, "Oh, really? You're proud of that? Like, you're way too talented to like be satisfied with that." And she still was proud of me, like she sees it, but she didn't let me stop when I got a little bit
Mhm.
of success. She kept me working so that I got to the level she knew I was capable of getting to that. And I'm just so appreciative of that, because a lot of people, they have a good player and they don't want to mess them up. They don't want to screw them up. They're just like, okay, she's good. Let's let her do her thing. And Shonda constantly was on me to be even greater, and not just be satisfied with the current skill set I had, or the current stats I had. She wanted more from me.
That's so great. And obviously you were coachable and listened, but are seeing kind of, again, full circle, is she mentoring you within the coaching world now? Like, hey, these are the things you need to prep for season.
Absolutely. I reach out to her pretty often, but to have her here the past couple days was nice too, to just feed off her energy, always get her advice going into season, and definitely a mentor for me on the coaching side as well.
I meant to look, but I thought I saw Indiana on your schedule this year. Are you playing them?
Yes, we are. So that's kind of funny that we are actually playing them this year, but we're both playing at Arizona in their preseason tournament. So third week of season, we'll have a game against the Hoosiers.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure you're itching for that. I also
Yeah.
saw, by the way, you are hosting 2 tournaments, and I swear you just recruited all of Indiana teams to come play you, because you're playing Purdue, Butler, and well, Radford's not an Indiana team, but Purdue, you're playing my alma mater, which I'm pumped about. And then the next weekend you live Ball State, Notre Dame, Indiana State. Did maybe she helped you with connections of getting those schools out to you, because they're all Indiana, but is it fun to be able to host your own tournaments now? Like, we didn't get to do that up in Indiana where I live.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of getting a lot of Indiana schools is because we're just a little bit south. So
Yeah.
we're hoping we've been outside this past week and it's been pretty decent weather. So I'm hoping it sticks around for the beginning of March.
Mm-hmm.
But just being a little bit south, I think it helps us get those Indiana schools. Hey, don't go too far, just come a little bit down to us. But yeah, to be able to host is awesome. We got some new lights on our facility this year. We got a new indoor cage, visitors locker room. So those facilities are helping us, not just host, but definitely increase our hosting experience for teams coming in.
Yes. Well, wrapping up here, what is it that you're most excited about, it being, season is a couple days? Like, what is it that we can look forward to seeing with Marshall this year?
I think the beginning might be tough, like we said, but our team, I think, is really adamant about getting tougher regardless of maybe an early knockdown or whatever happens. I think they're here for the journey and the long haul. So I think just to see us continually rise throughout the year is something I hope happens, that each game we get a little better, we learn each other a little better, our pitchers, get to face hitters and our own hitters and and evaluate a little more. So I think just a constant competitive growth for us is hopefully going to happen, and that's what I look forward to. I've seen it we have a first year women's basketball head coach this year, and she had a little bit of an up and down preseason, and then when she hit conference play, they're like 10-1 in conference, and she's a first year head coach, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll be that fortunate that we'll do that great, but like that's what you want, to just play each game your hardest, but eventually, hit your stride and just feel good about where you've gotten. So I hope my team's fortunate to experience that this year.
Well, I can't wait to follow. This is going to be fun, especially seeing you and your teammates who are now your coaches kind of go on this journey together. I'm stoked. I know all the listeners are going to be stoked in watching you. How can we follow you specifically and also your team this season? Where do you guys like to hang out? Everybody loves social media.
Right. I'm on Twitter a lot. I think my team likes Instagram a little more. But we've got a pretty good media guy that I think is going to give some good content. And then hopefully most of our conference games will be on ESPN Plus. So, I think more and more softball being on TV is awesome. So to catch a game definitely throughout the season and just follow us and see how it goes.
Perfect. I have one final question for you, and it's more about you as a player. But what type of encouragement would you give a player who wants to play for Team USA or play professionally, that maybe doesn't see that journey being very clear for her yet, what type of encouragement would you give her?
I think to be okay with the hard moments. If practice isn't hard, if you're not, if you're not struggling, you're probably not growing. If everything is easy and going smooth, you're probably not growing and getting better and striving for that next step. So if you've encountered roadblocks or struggles or things are hard, like that's probably a good thing. We talk a little bit about how stress can be a good thing, because through stress you're developing some sort of muscle, and that's the biggest thing I would say is be okay with the hard. That's going to make you better in the long run and hopefully set you up for eventual success.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time. Go get back to probably planning your lineup or what you're going to do before you travel. But good luck this season, and especially this week in Florida. We'll all be watching.
All right, thank you so much, Ashley.
Thanks, Morgan.